Record. My name is Lydia Edwards, Boston City Councilor for District 1. I'm the chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Government Operations. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Councilor Julia Mejia and Councilor Ricardo Arroyo, who are the lead sponsors for the dockets to be discussed today. I will explain a little bit. Oh, and also Councilor Ed Flynn. Thank you so much, Councilor Flynn. I apologize for missing you in the original. This is a public hearing that's being recorded and live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv. It will be rebroadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, Verizon Fios Channel 964. We will take public testimony at the end of this hearing. And if you choose to testify via video conference, please email shane.pack@boston.gov. That's SHANE.PAC at boston.gov to sign up. When you are called, please state your name and your affiliation and residence, and limit your comments to no more than 2 minutes to ensure all comments can be heard. You may also submit general written testimony by emailing ccc.go@boston.gov. Today's hearing is on docket 0773, an ordinance creating a commission on Black men and boys. As it was notified, the docket 0774, an ordinance creating a commission on Latino men and boys, will be, if folks choose to discuss that during their comments, they can, but our panel today will be focused on the ordinance creating a commission on Black men and boys. The ordinance is, let's see. The ordinance, again, was introduced by Councilors Julia Mejia and Councilor Ricardo Arroyo. The expected panelists today are Chief Selena Barrios Milner of the Equity and Inclusion Cabinet, Susan Helmy, Program Manager of the Human Rights Commission, Gregory Braze, Executive Director of My Brother's Keeper Alliance, MBK Boston, Rufus Falk, Director of the Mayor's Office of Public Safety, and Talia Wright Rivera, Director Program of SOAR. We also have for our panel, on our additional panel, Tito Jackson, former City Councilor of District 7, current CEO of Verdant Medical, William Dickerson, a Bishop of the Greater Love Tabernacle Church, Corey Thompson, Community Advocate, Ron Bell, also a Community Advocate, and Thaddeus Miles, Director of Community Services of Mass Housing. I'm going to turn it now over to my colleagues for brief opening remarks, and then we will have I believe the administration panel go. Is that right, Councilor Mejia? And then we'll have our guest panelists also speak again. So, Councilor Mejia.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Edwards, and thank you to everyone who's here today and for coordinating this very important effort here alongside us, and Councilor Arroyo for co-sponsoring our ordinance to establish a Latino Men's and Boys Commission. 7 years ago, then Councilor Tito Jackson filed an ordinance to establish a commission on Black men and boys. As a response to President Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative, the goal of this commission was to center the lived experience of Black men and boys across the city and give them a voice towards the issues that are impacting them the most, from education to economic development to violence and so much more. 7 years later, we still do not have that commission, but the issues that our Black men and boys face continue to disproportionately impact our community. When we say we have been having the same conversation for years, this is what it looks like. In 2020, a disproportionately number of homicide victims were Black, and in a 2018 study published in the Washington Post found that Boston had the widest gap of arrests for white and Black victims of homicide. We need a commission on Black men and boys, not only to address the external threats and discrimination that are experienced, but to also create space for healing and restorative justice on issues that come within the Black community. We also need to state clearly that two commissions, Black and Latino men and boys, must be kept separate, period. There are stark differences in the type of impact and of discrimination that each community experiences, and we need to be able to heal individually before we can heal together. As an Afro-Latina who claims my Black roots, I know this to be true. The policies that establishes these two commissions are nearly identical to the ones filed 7 years ago. The only major differences between these two now are that we have separated the two commissions. As originally intended, we have granted the commissions the authority to hold community conversations so that the healing process is directly a part of the process of that commission. We are blessed today to have Black leaders who have been fierce advocates, and we would not be here today on August the 20th holding this particular conversation had it not been for the work that these men have done. Ron Bell, Tito Jackson, Corey Thompson, Thaddeus Miles, Bishop Dickerson, Conan Harris, and a host of others who are part of this conversation but could not be here today. So thank you for your advocacy and for holding our body accountable to the work that started 7 years ago. I'm here for all of it.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank our advocates here today who put in so much work. I want to thank Councilor Mejia for making sure that this didn't go by the wayside. As most folks know, this is something that was initiated by Councilor Tito Jackson. And so I'm just glad to see that we are moving forward on this now. I know we're running a little late, so I don't want to take time from the panelists. I'd like to hear from our panelists. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. I will also be very brief. I think Councilor Mejia and Councilor Arroyo said it best. This is a committee that's definitely needed. I support it. It's going to bring great value to the city of Boston. It's a voice that needs to be heard and to be heard strong and to be respected. And the panelists that were mentioned by Councilor Mejia are outstanding men, Black men in the city. So proud to join them in listening to some of the issues facing boys and Black men as well. Thank you to the panelists, outstanding group of people.
Thank you. And I agree. I do not want to delay conversation any further. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the to the administrative panel. Have I missed any councilors who may have joined late? Don't think so. Okay. So we'll just go ahead and kick it off and have Chief Selena Barrios Milner. Sir.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Selena Barrios Milner, Chief of Equity and Inclusion. I want to start by thanking Councilor Mejia and Arroyo for your leadership on the creation of these two commissions, and also former Councilor Tito Jackson for his leadership and having the vision for this work. Thank you to Councilor Edwards and Flynn for holding the space for this conversation today and for your support of what I think is a vital body for the city. I just want to underscore everything that's already been said. Black men and boys are at the bottom of all of the positive indicators we would like to see, whether it's education level, upward mobility, earnings, political representation. They are underrepresented in all of those areas, and in the determinants that we would like to, in the sort of negative, the social determinants of health, whether it's different diseases or being victims of gun violence or being over-disciplined in our school system, they're overrepresented. And I think that anytime that there's such outliers, you need to put those affected in the middle of decision-making and envisioning solutions and advising us on how to best serve their needs, and advising the city on how to ensure that our policies take these large disparities and discrimination into account. So I definitely want to hear from the panelists that are here today. So just thank you all. I just want to say that our cabinet and administration wholeheartedly support the creation of this commission, and we look forward to working with you on this.
Thank you. Now going to Susan Helmy.
Good morning, counselors, advocates, and everyone on this call. Thank you for having me here. My name is Susan Helmy, and I am the program manager for the Human Rights Commission. I want to echo everything that everyone is saying. I think Chief Barrios Miller said it beautifully, and everyone said it beautifully, so I don't want to sit here and repeat everything. During the commission's first public meeting in June of last year, it was suggested by a commissioner that the commission make it a priority to address the marginalization of Black males in the city of Boston. The goal of this initiative is to bring awareness to the marginalization, trauma, and necessary healing of Black males. The goal of this is to rebrand and redefine the way the society portrays Black males. The commission held its first event January of this year, January 14, 2021, via Zoom, in which approximately 50 people attended. We had a wonderful presentation by a man named Brandon Jones. He's a psychotherapist, professor, and behavioral health consultant. He gave a presentation on the trauma that Black males face from the minute they are born until they pass away. After Brandon's presentation, we had a great discussion with some panelists that included Robert Lewis Jr., the founder of BASE, Robert Lewis, the founder of Pathway to Redemption, Haywood Fennell, and Dr. Craig Andrade, Associate Dean at Boston University, moderated the discussion. The commission's goal is to host more events and to bring awareness to this initiative. With the recent hiring of our education outreach manager that will be starting next week, we intend to build partnerships with other city departments and nonprofit organizations and programs. And we look forward to learning from these hearings and the work of the commission to guide out. I'm going to end it there because I really do want to hear from everyone else. And I just want to reiterate my thanks and appreciation for the advocates of this and just the push in the discussion because it's much needed.
Thank you. And I think we would have, I'm not sure. Oh, Greg, please. You're next.
Thank you, Chair Lydia Edwards and Councilor Mejia and co-sponsor Councilor Arroyo and the advocacy panel for your steadfast commitment towards catalyzing our efforts for Black and Brown Latino persons in the city of Boston. Having worked with a number of the advocates here today on the panel in a professional and personal setting, it is needed and necessary to say that their holistic efforts have created the synergy that the city desperately needs. And credit to the foresight of former President Obama and Emeritus Mayor Walsh, and now Madam Mayor Kim Janey, the city of Boston is tackling issues of historical and generational marginalization through the efforts of My Brother's Keeper Boston and newly established municipal offices catered towards the same mission of civil rights, such as the Commission on Human Rights, Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, the Office of Equity and Inclusion, and the Mayor's Office of Resilience and Racial Equity. MBK Boston welcomes the proposed commission and looks forward to the growing synergy between the two entities on the basis of equity or throughout any platform necessary for communal advancement of Black and Brown and Latino persons. This commission will hopefully supplement MBK Boston's efforts based off of the 6 ordained National My Brother's Keeper milestones of 1, getting a healthy start and entering school ready to learn. 2, reading at grade level by 3rd grade. 3, graduating from high school ready for college and career. 4, completing post-secondary education or training. 5, successfully entering the workforce. And 6, keeping kids on track and giving them second chances. All these pressing issues and themes mandated by the National Ordinance Charter of MBK Alliance are the critical layers of social capital that afflict the Black and Brown Latino community. This commission will catalyze these mandated efforts. Some of MBK Boston's most recent efforts involve stipending youth during the global pandemic, creating employment for COVID policies for BPS, and specifically creating pipelines for workforce diversification. It is an honor to announce that now, under the administration of Mayor Kim Janey, MBK Boston has recently partnered with UMass Boston, Big Brother Big Sister Eastern Massachusetts, and Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated to launch an extension site of MBK Boston in the realm of higher education. This extension site will be guided by 6 milestones of My Brother's Keeper, as well as pioneering a mobile application that serves as an apparatus for mentor to mentee transparency. MBK Boston will be tackling the issue of social capital in this institution and implementing this practice and resource throughout the city of Boston via the conduit of Boston Public Schools, with a mandated civic engagement service hours for UMass Boston students. My Brother's Keeper is an entity to uplift and serve marginalized populations who have yet to see their value in the city, let alone this country. This commission will bring forth that very same value for future policy to intentionally factor in the experiences and narratives of a population whose value has yet to be realized by pillared institutions. The administration is excited to see the outcomes of these 2 commissions and look forward to future collaborations and synergy. Thank you, Chair Lydia Edwards.
Thank you very much for both the testimony and the incredible updates. This is very exciting. I'm going to now turn it over to Dr. Ruth Spall.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Council. Well, good morning, sorry. I have the honor of being the Director for Public Safety for the Mayor's Office for the City of Boston. I've been in this role for about 2.5 years now, and one of the most rewarding pieces of this job is seeing the young men that we partner with, whether it be through our external partnerships, through entities like MBK 617 or other agencies who are directly impacting and interfacing with Boston's most vulnerable population, young men who are either on the precipice of being gang involved or trying to leave that life. And it's our role to try to be that bridge towards productive and positive adulthood. As being a former young Black boy from the city of Boston, now being a Black man, having grown up in the city, being a product of its institutions, I feel like that this commission will be able to provide some data behind the anecdotal information that we already know. We already know that we have many young men who feel like they don't have a place in the city, but we have to be able to put numbers to it to quantify that experience. Being a product of the city's institution, whether it be its public schools or its community centers or just local entities, I often felt like my experience was the exception to the rule versus being the rule. And I know that there were young men who had far more capacity, far more charisma, far more intelligence, who didn't have access to the same opportunities that I had. So I think that this is as a city, this is our chance to sort of create a baseline where regardless of your zip code, regardless of who you're connected with via church or via family network, that you will have access to an opportunity to be successful. I feel like the city's yours. I think we lose too many young men and women, for that matter, too many young Black men and women who feel like they've reached a glass ceiling in this city. They don't feel like they have access to opportunities. I think this is an opportunity for us to address some of that brain drain that the city has experienced as well. And it would behoove me not to sort of thank my father, who was a Boston kid, born in Cathedral, my grandfathers who were men in the city who had to traverse so many difficult opportunities or environments in order to create an opportunity for me to be sitting in this seat today. So the Office of Public Safety, whether it be through our Operation Exit programs or partnering with HHS on the Youth Development Fund side, try to create as many opportunities for those individuals impacted, whether it be by criminal justice or simply by environment. But I think this commission will give us an opportunity to be more preventative and be more widespread and holistic in our approach, in ensuring that young men with potential, young Black men with potential, don't fall through the cracks because they're not directly connected to any of our programming or any programming that we may fund. So I'm honored to be here. I think this is an amazing first step. And I think we're in an exciting time where we can make sure this is really a city for all. So I thank you. Proud to be here, and I'm here to answer any questions in particular. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you for your work also in East Boston, meeting with us, talk about the youth over there. So I just want to acknowledge that. Your office has been readily available many times. So I wanted to thank you for that. I will check if, I think it was, if Talia might be running a little late. If so, when she joins us, we'll just go ahead and have her speak in the next panel. But for right now, we're going to go on to the next panel. Councilor Mejia, if that's okay. I figured it would make sense to have both panels speak, and then we can have our questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So is former counselor Tito Jackson. I see he raised his hand. He might be in the waiting room. My apologies.
All of the attendees are in the waiting room, Councilor Edwards. Just
My apologies. Everyone's coming in. I apologize. Everyone in the waiting room. So Corey Thompson. Yep. Dave Halpert. Yep. They're all coming in. My apologies. Just trying to manage and get the Zoom life still. So my apologies to everyone who is in the waiting room. So Councilor Tito Jackson, former Councilor Tito Jackson, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And the title and the responsibility does not go away. So to y'all who are on the council, and I want to give a huge shout out to Councilor Julia Mejia. This is a promise that was made and kept. And I want to thank you for following through 7 years later on this important piece, and it's just as important as it was 7 years ago. I want to give props to I'm having a little flashback because Councilor Ed Flynn has the same office that I occupied, so I'm actually having some flashbacks about that office, and I want to thank you for being present and the support that you give to all the members of the administration. I want to thank you for the work that you do every day that people don't see. I want to thank you for addressing issues that will never show up on the cover of a newspaper unless you're doing something wrong. We know that the work is happening. I just want to put a couple things in perspective relative to how this came about. I do want to note that this commission predated President Obama's conversation about My Brother's Keeper. That is a very important factual component because the last administration conflated the two. And I want to be very, very clear here that this predated this, and this came out of a conversation that actually began at Horace Small's kitchen table. And we had a conversation about the Women's Commission in the city of Boston and how effective the Women's Commission has been. The Women's Commission that's been there for over 25 years, that has a dashboard that actually looks at how women are doing in the city of Boston, how childcare is doing in the city of Boston, how pay is distributed in the city of Boston. And in fact, the Women's Commission that actually was able to achieve a really important component that we see as something status quo now. There was not a childcare institution inside City Hall until the Women's Commission was created. And so we need to acknowledge that has been effective. And so what happened in that conversation, and then Ron and Thaddeus and 700 other brothers who got together around this issue were demanding that our issues as Black men in the city of Boston, a city where people say that they want to close the gaps, deal with the disparities. Well, you know what? I damn sure know we can't close any of these gaps or close any of these disparities if we don't deal with the issues of Black men, issues around the issue of violence. And not only those individuals who are perpetrating, those are also individuals who are victims. And as Dr. Falk, I love saying that, knows, that can change in a day. An individual could be a perpetrator one day, could be a victim the other day, but they're still someone that we actually need to take care of if we truly believe in this work. So that's a critical component. I also would note contextually, this is settled law. This passed 13-0, and I want to note it passed in a council that was a little bit less diverse than the council that we have today, a little bit. And so I actually consider this settled law, and I personally believe that this is something that just needs to happen. It has to happen, and it has to happen now. We can't. We obviously know this is not the venue to ask for a bag of dough. We'll come back to y'all a little bit later on that one. But when it comes down to it, this is absolutely the venue that we need to move forward on this issue. And I was sitting here and I'm looking. We have an Aberdeen Architectural Conservation District Commission. We have an Air Pollution Control Commission, an Animal Control Commission, an Archives, Records, and Advisory Commission, an Audit. Come on, guys, right? And so I can keep on going if y'all want to talk about my friends at the Bay Village Historic District Commission and the Beacon Hill Architect. So we have multiple entities that look at multiple things in the city of Boston. I can't think of an issue that is more urgent than this. In my former city council district, I mention it on a regular basis, but from Back Bay, the little tip that I had of Back Bay to Roxbury, there's over a 30-year difference in life expectancy. The median net worth of a Black family in the city of Boston is $8. And the most recent census data shows that we are less Black of a city than 4 years ago when I was actually on the council, based on the latest census numbers. And let's just say that let's say at least 50% of those folks who are moving out were Black men. These issues that are before us are absolutely critical. It's such an important time that we move forward. And I also just need to name another component. When we put these things forward, and I appreciate Brother Greg Blaze and the work that he's doing, but let's also keep it real. My Brother's Keeper has not been a funded initiative in the city of Boston. And in fact, most of the funding that has ever been allocated to My Brother's Keeper came out of Thaddeus Miles' pocket and the pocket of Mass Housing, the organization that he works with and for. So I have always said a budget is a value statement. So don't tell me as a Black man that you care about us, that you care about the outcomes, that you care about my community, if you're not willing to allocate the resources that you allocate to every other institution, issue, or problem. And so that is also another piece that we need to note. This is, again, settled law. It was passed unanimously. All 13 city councilors passed this 7 years ago. And it was vetoed by Mayor Martin J. Walsh. And it was vetoed with the mentality, what we were told, and this is another aside that the city council doesn't have a lawyer. I won't go there. I digress. But the legal counsel said that we were not allowed to create a commission because that's the mayor's job. Well, 7 years later, we don't have a commission. We don't have a dashboard that looks at the longitudinal data that we need to look at to determine how well or how not well Black and Latino men are doing in the city of Boston. Last couple points: Black men and Latino men have issues that deserve to be looked at on their own. We can liaise together. But I find it offensive as a Black man that someone would, and I found this offensive when we were forced to put these together, because, by the way, the Black and Latino Men's Commission is not at all what I put forward. I put forward a Black Men's Commission because we did it in February of 2014. So it is critical that we have separate commissions. And the issues in particular are important enough and rise to the level enough that we actually need to deal with those issues. And I'll just end with my father, Herb Jackson, died in 2002. In his deathbed, I didn't know it at the time, we had a conversation about the percentage of contracts. As you guys can see, that's totally my dad, but the percentage of contracts that he was advocating for, dedicated his life to at the time in the city of Boston. He was advocating for 5%. And today, in 2021, there's less than 1%. My dad died nearly 20 years ago. We don't have time. We don't have time to play around. We don't have time, and I love amendments and all. I was there. I did that. This is settled law. We have to get it done. The issues on the street, in addition to COVID-19 and the like, as well as the violence that's occurring in our community, require us to act now without delay. And I would hope that this would be passed immediately. If not, and I don't know I can't remember the schedule, but hopefully the first meeting after this, that we have an opportunity to actually make this happen. Thank you all for the opportunity. Councilor Mejia, props to what you're doing. Councilor Ricardo Arroyo, props to what you're doing. And Madam Chair, as well as Councilor Flynn, thank you for your support on this topic.
Thank you. Bishop William Dickerson, the Greater Love Tabernacle Church. Is the bishop here? No. Okay, we'll wait for him and Talia. I see Corey Thompson.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
A little backstory about myself. I'm a Project Reach scholar, a product of Boston Public Schools, and my brother's keeper. I lost my son 10 years ago at 7 years old to a dilated cardiomyopathy, a young Black boy who was at the time fighting for his life, but we didn't realize that we were also being used as a young Black boy. And this was in Baltimore City, where they experimented on this little boy, which was my son. In the aftermath of that, losing him on Valentine's Day, February 14th, and beyond, it pains me to see that Black boys in this country, Black boys in this city, and Black boys around the world are still being marginalized. That would not have happened in any other situation if my son was a different complexion. And to come back home to Boston and see one of my brothers, Tito Jackson, because we were all part of Project Reach and Freedom House. I'm a class of '89 Freedom House scholar. And I vowed to Project Reach for helping me go through funding-wise, spiritually, and support from other Black men, strong Black men in the community, that I would come back and whatever community that I was in, give it 110% of my heart and soul for the price of going to college. Because I know I was very privileged to have that, not a burden to go to school. And I say all that to say is not having a burden just to live, to be who you are, is a right. I come back home to Boston and there's a young man that's living in his car across the street from where I live now in the Common Square, Dorchester area. But this is not a typical situation for if it was somebody of a different complexion. He works at Boston Medical as a technician with a full-time job and still cannot afford housing. That is disgraceful in my eye. He's paying $900 a month in a one-bedroom that is not even secured. He's tried for support with his 14-year-old daughter, but because he's a Black man in this country, in this city, he's given challenges. But yet, just this week alone, and this young man is a good man, he's a Haitian immigrant, transplant to Boston when Haiti had its first troubles with the earthquake 10 years ago. And he came here, educated himself within the system, and became a technician that could service my mother at medical center when she had a procedure done this week. And when he saw her, he gave her a big smile and made her day that much nicer. And if we can't support Black men like that, who can we support? And I am proud to see some of the changes that I see in Boston, like brothers from Ron Bell, Thaddeus, my own brother Tito, and then Julia Mejia. A special place in my heart for that person because she has the colors of my son. I wear blue and orange in representing my son every day since he passed, because when he passed, the community that I was in, they came and uplift us and supported us through a very hard time. So it's my responsibility as a Black man in Boston to do the same for other Black men and boys that I can do and I can serve. Because without serving, we are nothing. So I ask you to support these young men and women and through a commission that will help us all be stronger. And I know for a fact that a rising tide will raise all boats. So we need to rise the tide for all these Black men and boys, because everyone will benefit. And I know that for truth. And I have faith in the people that I see here in front of me now, and I have faith in the city of Boston. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Up next is Rhonda.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Lydia Edwards, and Councilor Flynn, Ricardo Arroyo, Councilor Julia Mejia especially, for doing this, and pardon my voice. And my condolences to your son, man. I've been doing this work for 30 years. And I grew up in Mission Hill, and I went to Boston Latin School. And in my 30 years work, I started my work in Roxbury, Tennessee Harbor in Mission Park, where my mom fought Harbor and her neighbor fought Harbor for affordable housing. Excuse my voice. This is real important to me. In my work in Mission Hill, I worked with Black men and Latino men. And during the time I started my work, Mission Hill had the highest incidence of heroin in New England. And then I was initiated with the Stewart case, where Black men were savagely violated, civil rights violated, pants pulled down right in front of the center. And I remember vividly turning around because I didn't want to be that victim of being racially profiled, pants pulled down in front of people's children. And as you know, I started an organization called Dunk the Vote out of that, and for my Latino brother, Don't Care Voto. And what I've learned, that we have so many problems in the Black community. One of the officials that ref the games died on Christmas Day in 1992. And that was my brother. He was murdered. I constantly go to funerals. Bishop Dickinson's not here today because he's doing a funeral. Last week, I got a call from a friend from Atlanta. He wanted me to go pray for his grandchildren because his son-in-law was murdered in Mattapan, shot in the head. And we hear these stories constantly. As a Black man, as a Black father with a 21-year-old son, every time I see the news, someone being killed, the stress level goes up. And as in my work, working with Black men, I've noticed that we have a lot of complexities. We lead in every disparity. And the diaspora is very difficult because we have issues amongst the African diaspora. Tito Jackson made reference to the hearing of the 700 brothers. Horace Small from Union of Minority Neighbors and I was very instrumental in organizing that. And then when I heard that we were going to put the Black Male Commission and the Latino Male Commission together, I had an issue with that because I know, working with both segments of our population, that we have issues amongst the Black diaspora, African diaspora, and the Latinos have issues amongst Latino diaspora. The Black diaspora, Jamaican, Haitian, African American, Dominican, it goes on and on. Latinos, Dominican, Puerto Rican, I don't need to tell folks what the diaspora represents, but I am here to say I'm tired. In my work registering people to vote, we hire Black men. In hiring them, we hear their problems about not having employment, friends and family members being murdered, going to funerals. That's traumatic. We've been in a pandemic for the last, all my life I can remember. I'm asking the commission to support this. I'm asking the city council to support the Black Male Commission. We cannot wait any longer. People are dying. Last week, I spoke at a funeral, Bishop Dickinson and I, of a young man who had a heart attack. As some of you know, hearing these problems and working with people takes a toll on your body. 2011, I had a heart attack, 2 heart surgeries from the stress I've dealt with, but I continue to move on. Thank you, Julia Mejia, Ricardo Arroyo. This is so important. Thank you, Lydia Edwards, Flynn, Councilor Flynn. We're depending on you. We're counting on you to support this effort. And I'll end with a quote I always say. Frederick Douglass, we are one, our cause is one. We must help each other if we are to succeed. God bless y'all, and please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Thaddeus Miles.
Madam Chairman and councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I know I only have a few minutes, so I'll be direct. But honestly, listening to Brother Corey, listening to Brother Tito, Brother Ron, some of this is triggering because, the reality is when I hear Rufus, when I hear Gregory, just among us, I know in the last 20 years of service, we've been to 400 or 500 funerals of young men that are like our sons. And so for me, this is a very, very, very important moment. But some of you know me as many different roles, Director of Public Safety for Mass Housing that I did for 20 years, the Director of Community Service at Mass Housing, which I'm currently serving in, the founder of the Black Joy Project, the founder of Hood Fit and the Road to Wellness, former chair of Becoming a Man, and former chair of MBK Boston. I'm here today as the former chair of MBK Boston for 4 years. I'm here today because I believe there's a chance to correct the city's mistake in its inability to say A-N-D, several years ago. The Black Men's Commission, the Latino Men's Commission, and MBK and the Black Men's Commission, the Black Latino Men's Commission. Here are a few truths that Tito alluded to earlier. Several years ago, the city declared MBK to be the answer for the issues that are set aside, but have never truly invested in its success. The director has never had a budget until this year, which is still only $100,000. All of the funds had to be raised from outside foundations, which luckily my organization was able to do. The Boston Foundation gave us $50,000. The Red Sox gave us something, and GE gave a small amount when Conan Harris was the director of My Brother's Keeper. Throughout the COVID crisis, MBK has not been used. It has only received $20,000 in funds from the City COVID Foundation to support 2 Black organizations. If you really care about the Black men's issues, how do you raise $30 million and only be able to give $20,000 to the organization that you have in-house? Currently, it's not being used to help with the vaccine issues. You know, I've spoke on it. Tito spoke on it. You know, some of us have caught COVID, and we're out here doing videos and other things, but there's no coalition, and the city's not moving and using the MBK to address it. But yet you still say that the city still says that it cares about this. It's not being used to address the wealth gap. And when I say it's not being used, I'm saying MBK is not being that. Yeah, all Black men all around the city are diving into those issues, but it still seems that we are invisible and not listened to. Truth is, MBK has never been the answer. It has always been part of the solution. The current MBK, Gregory Blaze, is doing some amazing work with very little. And I think what you just hear them say, I am so proud of him and what he's doing and the work that he's doing, but there's very little to zero funds to be able to do that. And that to me is a testament to his greatness. He's a visionary leader, and I'm sure he will continue to lift up MBK to the next level if given the resources. And part of those resources is a partnership with these commissions, the Black Men's Commission and the Latinos Commission. The reality is MBK is designed by the Obama Foundation, as Gregory said, to only address a few issues of concern for men of color. Those are 6 issues, and I won't go back into them, and really the city only attacks 3 of those 6 issues. And so, you know, when we're talking about the community, we're talking about more than 6 issues. When we're talking about Black and Latino men, we're talking about a multitude of complexity in how they intersect. And if we're being real about this, we cannot limit ourselves to those small areas of impact that MBK does. Boston has a lot of work to do to make sure that Black men become a factor. And lately we've been told that we're not a factor, which to me was surprising in its decision-making and its inclusion, but more so its voice. Black and Latino men in Boston need to know that you see them. I need to know that you see me. They need to know that you hear them. I need to know that you hear me. And they need to know that you're willing to take action with them. I need to know that you're willing to take action with me. To see them means you're not just helping one, me, Tito, Corey. You're helping all of those that are connected to them or I. That you're giving them a platform, that you're taking action to remove the cloak of invisibility and pity put on us by a system that still sees us as a group of incarcerated thugs in some way. These commissions are the A-N-D to MBK Boston. And I want to say that again as a former chair of MBK Boston. These commissions are the A-N-D to MBK Boston. MBK is the A-N-D to these commissions. I'm asking you to put a dose of healing and change in the arms of Black and Latino men by moving these commissions forward today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you to your commitment. And Councilor Mejia and Councilor Earl, love you, and I truly appreciate you. And to my sisters out there, I just want to say this because sometimes we get it twisted. To my Black and brown queens, you are my inspiration, and I give you all that I have, and I give all that I have to protect Black and brown women. But we need this moment to focus on Black and Latino men. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your powerful testimony. I do know that we have one person in the waiting room from public testimony. I figured we'd let him speak. I know he has an 11 o'clock. David Halpert, City Councilor candidate at large. David's here still. I see you, David. Go ahead.
Yeah, Councilor Edwards, thank you so much for taking me out of turn. I appreciate that, and I'll be brief. Councilor, to yourself and to the members of the committee, my name is David Halpert. I'm a Dorchester resident, a candidate for Boston City Council at large, and a Black man living in our city. I'm speaking today in support of the ordinances offered by Councilors Arroyo and Mejia, an ordinance creating a commission on Black men and boys, and an ordinance creating a commission on Latino men and boys. The proposed commissions are needed now more than ever. With Black and Latino men on the wrong side of most indicators of health, wealth, and quality of life, it is imperative that city government take intentional steps to address the root causes of these persistent challenges to the welfare and livelihood of tens of thousands of our residents. I appreciate that these commissions will separately focus on the issues of boys and not solely on adult men from these respective communities. We know that far too often interventions offered to adults seek to remedy issues whose seeds were planted during childhood. By working to identify and address issues among our youth related to the specific challenges that Black and Latino boys face in successfully navigating society, I believe that these commissions will form a critical component of Boston's efforts to interrupt cycles of poverty, violence, underachievement, and the school to prison pipeline. In addition to serving as advisors to city departments and conveners of action-oriented public dialogues around these issues, these commissions have the potential to serve as valued and trusted instruments for the analysis and public distribution of empirical data relative to the challenges facing both communities. This will make them invaluable components in our larger systemic efforts towards achieving true equity for all in Boston. We know that no one commission or organization will be able to effectively solve the many issues that Black and Latino men face in our society due to the impact and legacies of institutional and structural racism. But by taking this step and creating bodies that have this mandate at their core, we acknowledge the unique nature of the challenges faced by men across Boston, myself included, and show our commitment to having the honest and at times difficult and painful conversations needed to create the change that we deserve. I thank Councilors Arroyo and Mejia for their work and commitment to these important issues, and to the Council for its consideration of these proposals, which I am proud to fully support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So at this point, we usually open up for questions from councilors to the panelists and to the administration. And so I'm trying to just get a copy of the ordinance creating the commission up. I will have some questions, mostly to the original sponsor, former councilor Tito Jackson. And then but until I get a copy of it, I was just going to turn it over to lead sponsors if they had any questions or wanted to guide the conversation. So I'll turn it over to you first, Councilor Mejia.
Yeah, so I do, while we get that ordinance over to you quickly as possible, we had the privilege of meeting with Mayor Janey on this topic specifically. This is a question to the administration, specifically discussing whether or not keeping the two separate commissions or having them under one commission with two working groups, et cetera. And we're just really adamant and anxious to hear about some confirmation about and confirmation from the administration around keeping these two separate. And I'm just curious if anyone in the administration could speak to that.
Before you speak, Chief Barrios Miller, I want to be clear about the narrative around today's hearings, why they were notified on the same time, and what exactly I had proposed. I proposed that both hearings happen today, but never once did I want the commissions to be combined. I want to be clear about that. It was going to be the Black Men and Boys Commission hearing, panelists speak, and then we would start the next hearing on the Latino Men, Boys, and Commission to speak. And then afterwards, because one is already an ordinance and already been passed by this body, there would be separate working sessions, not separate working groups, separate working sessions to go into that. Now, I understand from the lead sponsor, because of the, and I'm going to ask the questions that I would normally ask in a working session on the Black Men and Boys Commission, because if it is all set, and if before Chief speaks, if the acting mayor is fine with it as proposed, then I agree with you, former Councilor Jackson. There's no point in delay.
That's right.
Okay, but I want to be very clear about why they were, the way it's titled, it looks like creating a commission for this and this. That is not the goal, okay? That was not ever the goal. Thank you. So I'm turning over to you, Chief.
Yeah, I just want to say that we absolutely support keeping the two commissions separate. So we hope we can move forward quickly to establish those.
Great. Thank you for going on the record, because there was some buzz around whether or not that was going to be the case. And so for me, and it wasn't just the way this was publicly noticed, there was also some rumblings on the sidelines in regards to this. So just wanted to have something on the record stating the importance of honoring the two separate commissions. So thank you for stating so eloquently that we are moving in the right direction and there's not going to be any need for us to burn down the system here. Okay, great. So I'm excited to hear that. And just because I know while we normally have a working session, we were also under the impression that we were going to like get into the weeds of the language. And I know there's some stuff, Councilor Edwards, that I also want to have some conversation around, is that the goal for us was to have this as a working session so that we can get into the weeds of the language and then put this up for a vote sooner rather than later. And I'm just curious, because this was came as falling under a hearing, just kind of wanted to
I'll reiterate what I just said, which is that we are going to do just that, and there will be no delay. But I did have questions, as I would propose normally, on the language as in a working session. But because this has already been passed, I just wanted to make sure I was clear if there's any additional edits, concerns, or anything to go into this. And I feel it's fair and warranted. It has been 7 years. I'm not talking about edits in terms of changing. I mean, were there things that you compromised or didn't or wanted and had to take away that you want to put back in, for example? Does this commission address LGBTQ or transgendered men in the community, and how? And those are the questions I feel, and could it be more aggressively representing them or not? And I'm proposing them now as we speak to the original lead sponsor, but to all the folks here on the panel. And those are the things that I feel is worth at least talking about it in a distance of time. But yes, you had my commitment before, and I'll reiterate it again, that we are going to not delay this in any way, shape, or form. Our next meeting actually isn't until, I think, September 15th, Councilor Jackson.
Okay. Madam Chair, thank you so much for the question. Even though it's my legislation, I will note that I don't believe any legislation is perfect. And I do believe the additional edits of the addition of dealing with the issues of the LGBTQIA plus community have been inserted. Thank you to Councilor Mejia, as well as Jacob in her office, who's done yeoman's work on this. It is our intention to deal with all aspects of Black men, from origin to their identity, and all aspects of that, right? Because we have to, if we're truly going to deal with the outcomes, we have to deal with these issues. And I would submit that we can't fix what we will not face. And the issues in this area are absolutely critical. And in fact, when we look at the mortality rates of our LGBTQIA community are way worse than the mortality rates of cisgender straight Black men, right? So still many issues in the healthcare side, HIV and the like, are barometers that are still skyrocketing, whereas these are disease states that are disease states in other communities people just live with, but sadly still in the Black community, they still die from. So that is a area that we are all on board with, and we have added to and addressed in the current language that you have before you.
So could I say something really quick, Councilor Edwards, just to want to make sure that you have the right, the most updated version. So on the section 15-1113H, we do actually have language specifically stating that we are going to be
orientation and gender identity.
All of that is part of the updated language in this version. So yes.
Thank you. Thank you again for your leadership, Councilor Mejia. and inclusion. Another question I have for the group, there is in B, it says, or C, excuse me, of 15-11.3, monitoring and advising city agencies and departments on issues pertaining to Black men and boys. And then I see that there's going to be an annual report. Is that going to be a report that specifically talks about, or how do you envision that report and that monitoring talking to each other? I'm fine with auditing and just outright saying the failures of some of the city agencies and to address the needs of, to coordinate with, to employ even. I mean, because it's not just from the city hall out, it's what's going on in city hall, who's there working as well. So do you see that monitoring as the hiring practices within the city hall, number one? And then your report, is that more of an audit of how the city agencies have or have not met the needs of Black men and boys in the city of Boston?
So,
everybody.
Okay, so I would say all of the above, but I also think we also have to understand that it's a 20-person commission. And so some of the work that, as important as it is to be clear in our legislation, the 20 amazing, talented brothers and sisters who potentially will be on this, we also will be giving them the opportunity to look at those parameters. As we know, a year and a half ago, the issue of COVID-19 wasn't even an issue. And so I think it's really important that we give some discretion to the individuals who will be able to form this around the components of that actual report and not predestine what the report will say. As you noted, Councilor Edwards, we know at least the first one is not going to be pretty. Hopefully we will see very quickly that it'll change. But we daggone know for that first one is not going to be cute at all in terms of the numbers. But I think those parameters are things that we can get the group to actually form their opinions around what should be included.
In terms of the,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to just know that Chief Barrows, Miller had her hand up. Just wanted to acknowledge that. Sorry.
My apologies, Chief. Thank you, Councilor Mejia.
Oh, you had yours up first, Councilor Mejia.
Councilor Mejia.
But
you go. I was raising my hand. You know that you needed to speak too.
Thank you. I appreciate it. No, I was saying that I wanted to say that when this was initially drafted, it was prior to the existence of the Equity Cabinet. And so I would welcome having a formal working relationship with this commission. I think it's central to our mission to putting a racial equity lens on all the city's policies. We oversee the diversity office, which is overseeing hiring of and retaining and promoting of our diverse workforce, supplier diversity, immigrant advancement, so I think that this fits in really well with our overall mission. We're still a newly formed cabinet, so I just welcome the role to have a formal relationship with this commission and helping to staff it and ensure that that it can be successful.
When you say formal, you mean you want to be within the legislation or what do you mean?
Yeah, I think that because I think that the ordinance references the Civil Rights Commission, for example, which is now the Human Rights Commission, which is this, I think, should also be tied into the work there. So I think in that, I'm trying to go back to what section that was in.
It's in G, working with the Office of Civil Rights to ensure Black men and boys are represented at all levels of city government. You would like that the Office of Civil Rights or the Office of Equity and Inclusion as well to be part of that working?
Yes, and that's really like we have the staffing and the mission to support that directly through our Office of Diversity in particular, the Human Rights Commission, which is here, and some of the others that I named. So I just want to make sure that this we have the ability to operationalize recommendations and reporting and all of that. So I think that we could really support this having teeth and being effective.
Yeah. Councilor Edward.
Before I go, I see Rufus also raised his hand, so I'm just acknowledging folks who have hands up. And then also, I have not turned the mic over to Councilor Arroyo in any way, shape, or form if he wanted to ask any questions. So I apologize. But just acknowledging Rufus and Councilor Mejia. But Councilor Mejia?
I thought Dr. Rufus was going to go first, but I was going to say to the chief's point, the more that we can be intentional about the alignment, and maybe even with this reporting, identifying some clear goals and objectives, some metrics that we're going to hold ourselves accountable to, and within these different departments around, the number of. I'm thinking about workforce development. I'm thinking about violence. I'm thinking about all of the different spaces and places that our men are falling short under. If this reporting could work with the chiefs' various departments and identify percentages that we're going to work towards, and that reporting and accountability comes in with, here's where we were in 2021. Here's where we are in 2022, and where are the opportunities for growth, and what do we need to do to rectify the shortage, right, when we come up in these spaces. So maybe the annual reporting could link into the Boston Public Health Commission, like all of the different areas of key issues that we're going to be exploring. So that's just something that I'd like us to consider as part of the reporting.
I think Councilor, keep calling you Councilor Jackson. I apologize. I think former Councilor Jackson mentioned not so much a concern, but if we become too prescriptive at this level for the 20 people to really be as creative, as expansive, and to really flex their intellectual muscle, we have to balance how much we tell them that they're going to have to do with how much we say, these are guideposts at this level. They will in turn come up with because it does say, the regulations and so on and so forth will come from them.
That's
so
right.
I think, we got to go 30,000 foot level at this point and allow them the freedom to really, they're going to come up with things we never thought of. Right. So, but I'll just real quick to reiterate Chief Milner's question to the folks on the panel, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Falk. I actually don't see working with the Office of Inclusion as a bad thing. I think it's still up at the 30,000 foot level, and calling out the office, calling out the work as a cabinet position that didn't exist at the time. That's an amendment or an edit that I would support unless there's opposition or concern. Any opposition or concern about including the office? It's just to be working. Okay, good. Okay, cool. Dr. Falk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just thinking on as a researcher, but also as somebody who's in the position of being a service provider. I wish there was a way in which this commission can really do a real assessment of where men are individually. One of the things, just in terms of the space that I operate in, we oftentimes reach boys and men when they're already engaged in the system adversely, and oftentimes we're not able to catch them when they're on the precipice because we don't really have enough inputs where the community could say, I'm a parent. I have a 16-year-old. He's wearing a hat that sort of signifies that I don't know what to do. How can I receive some help? There's no real way for us to efficiently and effectively provide service for them in the preventative space if we don't have a real assessment of where they are and who they are and what they're dealing with. I was just wondering if there's a way in which that this commission, and then they can keep all their information in-house, but if there's a way in which the commission can really do, okay, I spoke with Rufus. I know he has a daughter who's about to be 8. I know he might be needing a job. So they can be the liaison directly to city programming. So they can be the liaison directly to whatever entities and departments that we may have. You might be an entrepreneur, you might need help getting your business license, whatever it is, we can directly connect you to that. Like, can this be the clearinghouse for this information, not only for boys, but for men, and in turn it's going to be for their families as well. That's our biggest trouble now. We can catch you after the fact. We can catch you if we know that you're already engaged. But oftentimes, because there's a lack of trust, hopefully this entity can provide to reestablish a level of trust between city services and the community, but where we can be efficient and effective by actually knowing who these Black men are, what they're dealing with, where they're at, and then we can address those issues individually versus thinking that there's some one like cure-all for all Black men within the city. I'm rambling, but I don't see that an assessment place where we can chronicle and sort of document who these Black men are and what they're dealing with.
Go ahead.
I think, Rufus, I think one of the other components here is it's a critical to have a connection with the Boston Public Schools. Right, so you're mandated to go there from 6 to 16. In addition, they have 7,500 people who work with our youth, right? And so I think the other piece here is, I think it's critical that from an advisory side of things that the commission is there to advise, but there are full-time Boston Public School as well as City of Boston employees that we need to task with this follow-through in terms of being able to do that. And by the way, if there's not someone, like I said before, next April, we're going to be having a conversation with those counselors about getting somebody funded to actually do that work if that individual doesn't actually exist at this point. Because I think, Rufus, one of the things that you're actually noting a lot of times is even with your office, Greg's office, we create an office, but then we don't fund it to have programming. Same thing with SOAR, right? There are many young men, and you know this better than I do, Rufus. If you buy them pizza, they're gang related. You buy them pizza, and that keeps them off of the street for 4 hours because they didn't eat. Right, so you're not even dealing with, we are, dealing with, hey, put down the gun or whatever. We're not dealing with the fact that most young men who are gang involved in the city of Boston are homeless, right? And that's the other component here is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when it comes to all of these issues, we have to have that. So I absolutely agree with you. So I think the other component, I believe, if you can clarify, Councilman Mejia, but there is some information about the connection with BPS, but having this from a kind of advisory perspective, and then hopefully adding staff as needed, because that's one other piece that I don't want to see the commission get put something on the shoulders that, I don't know, Ron's my cousin. I think he has about 18 jobs, right? So I don't know, I don't think adding, additional individual work to just a commissioner without actually having a budget and the like is going to be the most sustainable as well as effective piece there.
Thaddeus?
Thank you. I have to leave, but I did want to say I agree with Rufus, but I also think that that's why we're going to have 20 people on the commission. There are certain things that we all want to see done, but that's the commission's work to do, right? And so I really want to see this pass and move forward shortly, because we all could spend the next 3 months adding additional things. Because when I think about housing, and I think about one of the challenges with MBK is the age range, right? It has an age range that's there. But I just had to come out of my pocket for $2,000 to get an elderly Black man into housing, right? Because there were no avenues in order for that to be done. So, and then a month later, he died from health conditions. And so for me, it's a lot more stuff that we have to do, but bringing those 20 people together, getting this moving now, for me, is the most important thing. And so I just wanted to say that I want to thank everybody for all of their work, for all of their love around this, and I'm in whatever way I need to be in. If y'all have 15 more working meetings, can you all have them all on one day so that we can move this next, so we can move to the next step? So I appreciate all of y'all. Be blessed. Have a beautiful weekend, and keep moving. Peace.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care. We ain't gonna have 15 other meetings about this. First of all, I said September 15th is when we're gonna get it done. I ain't got that kind of time. So what I heard from some of the suggested language, so with Office of Equity being included as one of the working offices to work with, and BPS possibly also being included and listed and just called out at this level. Are those two edits we're okay with, not getting too deep into the weeds, but just pulling them out?
Yep.
Okay. One question I did have for you, Counselor or former Counselor Jackson, was about the legal response. Because I'm looking at this. This is just me being a district counselor, which you were too. And while I appreciate, the mayor being able to appoint all of them, have you thought about an appoint and confirmation system where the city council can also have a voice in this?
It's interesting. I actually I hadn't thought of that. It's actually for me either way. It's been 7 years, and the funny piece is I had no problem 7 years ago with it being a direct appointment, even with the prior mayor. But whatever, we, from a timing perspective, the most important piece is simply to get it flowing. I don't know, and I'll be honest with you, just on the political piece, as Ron spoke about, we're dealing. We literally, and I just have to disclose this, we talk about 2% of the stuff that we end up doing, the people we end up helping, and the burden that's there. We only talk about the top 2%. There's things that happen throughout the day, every single day, with all of the brothers who are on here and sisters who are on here. And so I don't want to get it into, so I'm amenable either way. I just want to get it done fast. Okay. And I don't want there to be, and I would defer to Councilor Mejia as the lead sponsor on this, in terms of whatever she wants to do on that. And the one piece I would note is in section 15-11.5, I did want to note that I do want that language clarified, that how it reads currently reads that we kind of only are going to do a report the first year. So however, Madam Chair, with your multiple degrees, I'm sure you could just help us out here, where it adds that there will be a report annually and not only the first year. So I defer to you as a text edit on that to clean that up, because I think that is the one piece that we definitely have to task the commission with, is that annual report or report card.
Okay. I can do that. I can do that.
And much more. You have no idea. She's my official translator too. And I would also just kind of, we would be fine with an appointment and confirm, and I definitely do agree and stand by with Tito's comments. So that's all good. And I just kind of wanted to just say something really quick to Dr. Falk's point earlier. Just kind of wanted to uplift the fact that in our ordinance, it says performing outreach, communication, and liaison to Black men and boys related to community groups and organization. So there is a broader understanding in this ordinance that there will be individual outreach done. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that. And that, to Councilor Jackson's point, we would make the reporting component its own clause to avoid any confusion. So yes, we're in agreement with all of that.
Excellent. So I see, just in summary, adding BPS and the Office of Equity, making sure the reports on an annual basis, and you seem agnostic about whether the City Council can either suggest folks or confirm. I probably would check with the mayor's office if they just want to be able to have that power, and that's what's going to take. I'm understanding from you, if that's what it takes, then you're not interested in a political scrum over that.
Right, exactly.
I got you. I hear you.
You have to do the work and to move it along, and we can fight that.
I got you. I heard it.
But I think I just wanted to, in terms of the reporting, it would in terms of consideration, perhaps just removing during the first year of its existence. I don't know if that would help address that specific point. Could just remove it and just say annually, just to make it more clear.
Yeah. No, we're just going to take the clause out and just simply say there shall be an annual report or something like that from the commission. Blah blah blah.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. So those are the changes or edits or suggested things that I thought I'm glad we discussed. And since they're so a light touch, I think we're good for adding them in an amended draft and at least presenting it for the body on the 15th.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much,
Thank you, everybody.
Madam Chair.
I just want to say
Thank
also,
you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And I do want to say, as many of you have reiterated, this is not an and or Black women versus Black men. If by helping and working and uplifting Black men, we are helping and uplifting Black women. The two are directly connected. And so I'm very proud of this and proud of the work that you did and are doing. And you're right. It's so many of us doing so much, and it keeps going 2%. Sometimes you can't even get that done. Sometimes it's 0.5%.
It's for the Black family.
Exactly.
And the Black community.
Yes.
Completely. So thank you all. We're going to get it done.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Edwards, and thank you to everyone. This is one for the books and for history and for our people. So thank you. Thank you,
Julia.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.